Leandro Trossard has just got 3 assists in 1 game for Arsenal against Fulham in a 3-0 win. He was excellent, the whole team were, but Trossard in particular really stood out. All the assists came from this side of the pitch over here. You think he might have started as a left winger, but no. Trossard was a central forward in this game. He can play in all sorts of different positions. We'll talk about that in a minute. So he's very good, Trossard, and Arsenal knew a lot about him before they signed him. They wanted to sign Mykhailo Mudryk, obviously, he went to Chelsea, but there are lots of reasons apart from being good on the pitch that make Trossard such a wise signing, and obviously we can see it with hindsight now, but a few things to consider. First of all, he's 28, so he is not only Premier League ready, he's at his peak and should be for about 3 or 4 seasons to go. They've got him for 4 seasons, perfect business. Then what you also have to think about is that the level he's played at before is not the highest level. He's not played Champions League football before, he wants to get to that level, so he's hungry, and you need that sort of desire and competitive drive within your team to be able to go places. And the next thing you've got with Trossard is that he's very positionally flexible and versatile. So the heat map from the Fulham game, both Martinelli, who started on the left wing in theory, and Trossard are almost identical. It's sort of like this. They're all over the place, because both Martinelli likes to play through the middle, so does Trossard, but they swap. And it has the effect sometimes in certain situations of the game. It makes it look like they've got extra players, because Martinelli might be wide, Trossard will help out and double up. And so rather than just having 1 winger to deal with, they actually have 2. And then you think you might have a gap somewhere else, but the way Arsenal are set up, you end up having Odegaard that falls into the middle, with Saka being like a central striker after being on the wing. And when he gets into these attacking positions, like in the final third on the left or through the middle, he's very decisive, so he's good at decision making. It's something that Graham Potter said he had to improve when he played under him at Brighton, and he seems to be getting a lot better at it, and he's clinical with his choice of passes. So there are different kinds of techniques for all the assists he put in. One is a quite hooked cross from a corner. Another was a clipped pass, which he just clipped up to the back post so that Martinelli, who is the forward, headed in around about there. And there's another goal that he sets up for Odegaard over here, which is more of a more powerfully struck cross, which evaded the defender to give Odegaard the chance to come inside and smash it in the back of the net. And so Arsenal have all these different players in different positions. They all swap fluidly during games, and that's very useful because Trossard can play in a number of different positions. He can play through the middle as a striker, which he did. He can play off the left wing, he can play off the right wing, he can play in attacking midfield, he's done that for Brighton a lot, and he can play wing backs. He's done that for Belgium and Brighton lots and lots before. So you can start him on the pitch in all different positions, wherever you want to put him on the pitch, that's fine. But Trossard naturally moves into where he needs to be for each phase of play. So from the very start of the game, what we had was Fulham had figured out a way to stop Arsenal playing the way they normally do from the back, and we know that that becomes White, Saliba and Gabriel become a back 3, Zinchenko and Partey become a 2. And so what you'd have would be Trossard would be the central forward, number 9, Martinelli would go wide, so you've got passes into here. And what Fulham did was they, although they're in a 4-2-3-1, they managed to block this front 2 like this, and they had players around, so they were always blocking the pass in. So they had them surrounded basically. And Jack and Odegaard were up here because they form a box midfield. John's done this in one of the video we've got in Tifo IRL, so that's the box formed when they changed to this shape. So Fulham did everything they could to stop this from happening. They had made sure they had fullbacks on the wide players so that the passing option which you'd normally get in these positions out to here wasn't on. Then the player would block either this pass into Zinchenko, or this guy would block the pass into someone like Xhaka or Martinelli further up the pitch. So they're always trying to block these passes, and they would just move along. If it's swapped over, they then go to the other side of it, and they blocked it, and it slowed Arsenal down a lot. Now, Arsenal fixed this very quickly. After about 3 minutes, Arteta fixed this by pulling Xhaka to this space over here, pulling him wide to be almost like a left back, which suddenly meant they had a wide pass. But then that meant there was a big open space here, and naturally Trossard then knew instinctively to drop into this area so that the ball could get into Arsenal, and then they could turn and go. And there were a few situations in the game where in this third of the pitch, Trossard, Martinelli, Odegaard and Saka were all running at pace on the counter-attack to expose Fulham when they tried to push up. And it's something that he was able to do, and that's something you get with positional versatility and just in-game intelligence. And the final point, well, reason that I think he's a really good signing is to do with the rivals Manchester City, and it's to do with game load time. So the more games you play, the more fatigue you acquire, and the more likely you are, or susceptible you are, to succumb to the dreaded injury monster who bites your leg and then it stops to work. Rawr. That's stupid. Also, you get players out of form, and that's a bad thing as well. So you want to have players you can replace. Martinelli has been a little bit off it recently, but start to come back in now. So what you get with Trossard is someone who can cover multiple positions, Jesus, or in the midfield, or wide on the wing. So that's really useful. But if you look at Manchester City and the way they've managed the last few seasons, so Riyad Mahrez, for example, always plays on the right-hand side over here. Now, last season had an excellent season, 11 goals in the Premier League, but he only started 15 games and had maybe like 13 sub-appearances. Doesn't play every single week. This season, you got Foden and Grealish, who have both started 17 games each, whether for injury or for form, just like he rotates them, Pep Guardiola. So it means that the players don't get overworked, He can keep them in and out of form. He can use them when he wants to, and it means that they don't then acquire injuries. It also means when you take someone out, say you don't want Martinelli to play another game because he's played too many in a row, you take him out, put Trossard in, and you know you've got a player who is just good enough to start in that position, so you don't suffer any fallout. Your team isn't weakened as a result. But this is what Man City have. All the players they have can just come in, rotate, swap around, and they don't lose any momentum whatsoever. Arsenal are starting to get there. They're a very good team, they play very well, and all these players have a natural understanding, which means that when you do replace one of them, you don't lose out in that, having Trossard make a run across Martinelli so he can then become the central striker and get Odegaard at the back post. So obviously all this stuff's very useful. We know he's a very good player. He suits Arsenal just perfectly. He seems to suit the way that Arteta plays perfectly as well, so very useful to have. And what you now have with this competition for places and the ability to give rests to key players so they're not playing every single game is that Gabriel Jesus is back. So now you've got a player who can play in this false 9 role, or just a straight 9 up here, and then he can then come off the left when Trossard goes through the middle, multi-positional, same thing that they have when Martinelli's there. So now these two can share the load on the left, and that's very useful. Saka is still very important to Arsenal. They'll need to have someone to replace this. Trying it with Vieira now. We'll see how that goes. With Jesus back, they've got a fully loaded squad right at the right time, coming into the very last part of the Premier League season, and they look really good. They were amazing in that first half against Fulham. It's going very well for Arsenal, and you should enjoy watching Leandro Trossard, who may not have been the most exciting player in the world to have signed, but has turned out to be one of the best signings of the season, or maybe January, whichever one. He's just good.
If you like this video, please consider subscribing to the channel. The Athletic is home to some of the world's best sports journalists, including journalists dedicated to each Premier League team, so every fan gets the coverage they deserve, not just the big clubs. And you can try it for free now for 30 days. See the link in the description.